Operation Wonder Weapon, Book 1, Chapter 5. Rising tension. Boots squelched in the mud as John and his troops returned from the work detail. His stride steady even under his heavy load, his men straggling behind him. They were bent double with tools and kit, breath coming hard. John, mask and goggles still in place, didn't slow, didn't falter, until he noticed the struggle taking place behind him. He paused until they caught up and then slowed his pace. At camp's edge, the squad broke off, peeling away to stow gear, fetch water, or haggle for rations. John planted himself near the supply tent, hands on hips, surveying the chaotic sprawl of men, tents, and vehicles. The flutter of wings drew his gaze. A pigeon dropped to the ridgepole above him, cooing noisily. Then another joined it, then 3 more. They bobbed and paced, feathers puffed, until the chorus blended into one sound. Kukodits, kukodits, kukodits. John frowned, tilting his head back.
What am I supposed to do with that?
He called. He spread his hands as if demanding explanation from the heavens.
Not helpful.
The birds only bobbed faster. He didn't notice the knot of soldiers closing in until one barked,
"Oi, Zimmerman!"
John turned, his posture straightened at once. 6 men ringed him, faces flushed with Italian wine they'd traded for. Their eyes were sharp with suspicion.
"We've had enough. You ain't right. You don't eat, don't sleep, don't bleed. You're a German trick."
Another spat near his boot.
"Zombie captain, that's what you are. Spy for the SS.
A hand shoved his shoulder. John barely shifted. The wooden frame held fast. His voice cracked out, sharp and carrying.
That will do. You will step back now.
The command cut across the camp like a rifle shot. A few nearby heads turned. The men hesitated, but the ringleader sneered.
"You're no officer. You're a monster."
John's chin lifted slightly beneath the mask.
I am a captain of the United States Army. You are out of line, insubordinate, and in violation of military code. Lay another hand on me, and you will answer for it.
The ringleader grinned, emboldened by drink.
"If you're even human enough to sign the papers."
He shoved again. This time John moved. His hand snapped up and caught the soldier's wrist mid-push. Not violently, just immovable. The drunk tried to yank free. He couldn't. John stepped forward into the space, forcing the man back a pace without visible strain. The grip tightened a fraction, enough for the bones beneath to protest.
"Stand down,"
John said quietly. The words were level, controlled. The man's bravado faltered. His face drained as he realized he was not wrestling flesh. John released him.
"You will return to your tent now."
Boots pounded behind them. Nick, Ray, Larry, and the rest of the squad stormed in, faces hard. Nick seized the ringleader by the collar anyway, shoving him back another step.
"You got a problem with the captain,"
he growled.
"You got a problem with all of us."
The numbers had shifted. The rowdies looked from John to the closing ring of loyal men and made their calculation. A few muttered,
"Not natural. He ain't right."
But the edge had left them. They scattered. For a moment, only the pigeons cooed overhead. "Kukodits! Kukodits!" John stood very still, arms at his sides now, fingers flexing once before settling. Behind the goggles, his painted eyes blinked slowly as the surge of anger ebbed. He knew exactly how easily he could have crushed that wrist, and in that moment, he had wanted to. That frightened him more than their words.
Dismissed?
He said quietly. Nick didn't move.
Not on your life, Captain.
Excavation. The alpine air of Bavaria was sharp with the tang of slate and pine, already heavy with the promise of winter. Above them, crags vanished into mist, the ruined road winding down from the heights like a scar. Even this late in October, the ground should not have been so cold. Frost clung to shaded stones, and the soil underfoot rang hard as iron. The road had been broken up, a grid of strings staked to the ground. Shovels, trowels, and pickaxes carefully began to take the earth apart in excruciatingly thin layers. One of the clerks muttered through chattering teeth,
"Snow before November. Locals say it's always like this here."
Ryder, crouched at the grid's edge, corrected him softly.
Not weather. Another variable at play here. Every wagon, every lorry skids here when the rain freezes black upon this bedrock. Centuries of accidents are no coincidence. Nature does not repeat error so consistently. Something anchors it.
The aides scribbled as picks scraped. A call rose. Trowels fragmenting the hard soil had lifted brittle matter beneath the frost. Ryder descended with precise steps, folding his gloves into a tray as though entering a museum. The soil gave way to slivers of blackened substance, neither wood nor stone. Ash-brittle cloth clung in tatters, dissolving at his touch.
Careful,
He murmured. Each piece was lifted with tweezers, placed upon a tray, arranged as they had lain, a tattered mosaic. Then another find, an aide, carefully scraping the surface with a large palette knife, unearthed fragments of something cylindrical and petrified. Bringing more trays, the pieces were carefully removed and reconstructed in the trays, laid out on the stark white linen, revealing the original shape, a long black stick. From his case, he produced a small canister. A hiss of vapor spilled out, swirling over the tray. The thermic fog ignited at once in flickering flames, not blue, but vivid green, clinging to the fragments like hungry moths. The aides recoiled. Ryder leaned closer.
entropic resonance, very strong.
Another shout. The spade had struck something harder. Ryder brushed back soil with bare fingers, heedless of the biting cold. A black orb emerged, smooth and gleaming, light swimming beneath its surface like oil. Everyone gathered in amazement. Using the trowel, he patiently and almost lovingly carved the clay away until it was loose. He closed his hands around it. It came free easily, cold as death. But the instant it cleared the earth, a force dragged downward, as though an unseen magnet still claimed it. His balance faltered, and he caught himself. He tried again. The orb would rise, then suck back into its dirt cradle. No one breathed. Ryder's face remained composed, pale eyes fixed on the swirling green fire within the orb.
The oculus,
He said quietly.
the staff's hot.
The ground beneath his boots groaned. Frost cracked outward in jagged veins, and the air grew colder still, as if something vast stirred beneath. People scattered out of the grid, tripping on the cords. Ryder rose, but cautiously stood his ground, waiting, observing. Knees bent, hand outstretched for balance. The quiet returned.
This will not be as simple as I had hoped. I suspected as much, but I did hope.
The ground quieted. Frost lines etched like veins across the grid. His aides hovered at the edge of the cordons, too afraid to re-enter the square. At last, he spoke with that calm, professorial tone that cut through silence like a scalpel.
Bring me the shears.
The clerk carrying the field case hesitated, then laid it open on a clean cloth. Inside rested a pair of ancient blades, bronze corroded green along the hinge. They were short, curved like garden clippers, yet the edges gleamed faintly, as though light recoiled from them. Ryder nodded once.
The fates shears. Atropos cuts the thread of kings at these. Let us see what they cut today.
He set the orb in his left palm, steadying his stance, then lowered the blades with surgical precision. The oculus fought him, tugging downward, but when the tips of the shears touched the air below the orb, the freezing air around it hissed as if struck by acid. Sparks spat green and white, crawling up the blades. For the briefest moment, the weight slackened. The orb rose easily in his hand, almost weightless. One of the aides gasped.
It's working!
The ground convulsed. Slate and clay cracked in great webs, dust sifting down from the ridges above. A low sound vibrated through the trench, not quite a voice, not quite a growl, but unmistakably alive. Then, with a sharp crack, the orb snapped downward again, wrenching his wrist. The tray beside it flipped, fragments of petrified wood scattering like bones. The shears flared once, then went dull, their bronze edges blackened, smoking. Clerks scrambled out of the cordons, stumbling over string lines. One dropped his notebook entirely, another whispered hoarsely,
"It breathes! Meine Güte, it breathes down there."
Ryder released the shears, letting them fall useless to the frost. He straightened slowly, flexing his hand where the orb had injured it, his expression unreadable.
Still alive.
He murmured.
I had hoped she was not.
He looked over the ruin of the tray, the shattered fragments, the frost crawling wider across the dig. His pale eyes lingered on the orb, and for the first time there was no trace of triumph in them, only a cold acknowledgement.
This will not be severed. Not today. Catalog everything, seal the site, post guards.
The clerks rushed to obey, though their hands shook as they unfolded tarps and unbagged stakes. None of them spoke again of the sound. Ryder alone remained steady, staring at the orb with a quiet reverence. The next day, the orb still pulsed on the ground, tugging toward the soil as though bound to something far beneath. The first attempt, the fate's shears, had failed. The staff fragments remained fused to their owner. Ryder stood calm amid the unease of his aides.
If surgery fails,
He said softly.
Then physics may succeed. Bring the coils.
Engineers unrolled thick cables from a diesel generator, hammering iron stakes into the frozen ground. A cage of copper wiring rose around the pit, humming faintly as current surged. The aides kept their distance, their boots crunching nervously on frost. Ryder stepped into the cordon, cupping the orb in his palms.
Power.
The generator roared. A bass hum filled the trench as the magnetic field intensified. The orb quivered, green sparks crawling across its glassy surface. For a breathless moment, it seemed to rise, the tether slackening. Then the air ignited. Sickly green arcs spat outward, striking metal tools, helmets, belt buckles. Rifles clattered from hands as if ripped away. One aide screamed as his spectacles tore from his face, dragging him headlong into the cordon before Ryder gestured for the power to be cut. The hum collapsed. The orb snapped downward with renewed force, denting the hard ground beneath. Ryder's tone was as even as ever.
Magnetics insufficient. The tether predates our models.
He glanced at the man sprawled on the ground, bleeding from a broken nose.
Remove him. Prepare the flame rigs.
By dusk, flamethrower units and acetylene torches ringed the pit. A steady hiss filled the night as men bathed the fragments in searing heat. The orb darkened, surface gleaming like molten obsidian. For a moment the frost retreated, the soil steaming. Then it fought back. A shock wave cracked through the trench, frost bursting from the ground like jagged glass. Green flame burst up from the earth, curling against the night. One soldier shrieked as his boots froze solid to the soil. Another fell, clutching burned hands as fire licked over his sleeves. The aides stumbled back, choking on smoke and steam. Ryder watched, notebook steady in one hand.
Fire provokes ice. Ice provokes fire. She will not be cut by opposites. Both domains are hers.
The generators died down, silence returning, broken only by the groans of injured men. The orb still pulsed, bound and unbroken. Ryder stepped forward, brushing soot from his sleeve. His voice was low, almost reverent.
If surgery fails, if physics fail, then we must admit this is not mere matter. It is life, and life must be addressed as such.
Aides clustered at the ropes, pale with dread.
Doctor,
One ventured.
perhaps we should.
Observe.
Ryder cut in gently. Rather than cupping the orb, he placed a hand over it, and when he removed it, a green-glazed faience eye amulet was resting on the orb. He moved away a couple steps. The fragments of the staff flared, sickly green. A groan rose from the ground, not stone, not wind, but a sound that throbbed like a voice. The aides recoiled, one dropping his pen entirely. The icy veins melted. The breath of winter fled. For the first time in centuries, the ground was only earth, damp and cold, but not cursed. The aides stared in disbelief as the frost hissed away like smoke. Ryder alone seemed unsurprised. He observed the soil split. Black cloth, ragged as ash, pushed upward. From the pit rose a figure, pale, gaunt, draped in a tattered shroud. Her eyes burned faintly with green fire as she collapsed to her knees. Breath ragged, horns rising through her black hair. She looked not like a prisoner released, but a sovereign restored. One aide whispered, trembling,
It's warm.
Ryder inclined his head, voice calm.
The curse is broken. Catalogs the change. The land is hers no longer.
Ryder did not move. He regarded her steadily, as though he had been expecting her all along. At last, he inclined his head, polite.
Fräulein Malefice, our apologies. The staff is yours, and yours alone.
The woman's head lifted slowly from where she crouched, twisted horns rising proudly above her head, eyes unfocused, lips parting in a hiss. Her hands trembled, clawing at the thawing ground as though relearning their strength. Ryder's voice was calm, patient, the tone of a professor greeting a new student.
If the staff will answer only to you, then we must work together.
She rose slowly, looking at the site, the people, the vehicles, all unfamiliar. She took a couple drunken steps toward Ryder before collapsing again. Ryder caught her and lifted her into his arms.
We will take you somewhere safe. We will explain all.
Her eyes lingered on him a moment. Then she went slack, and he carried her toward the trucks. Magic men. They had returned to the battlefield. The road was half buried under rock and cratered mud. Engineers sweated with shovels and picks, clearing rubble so the convoy could crawl forward again. John worked shoulder to shoulder with his 3 friends and the nearly 100 other men he was responsible for. Dust clung to his mask and goggles he fruitlessly wiped at with his even dustier gloves. As he paused to wipe his goggles, a memory came back to him suddenly. He glanced at his friends.
Back at Castle de Monte, the man who stole my magic told me he saw something in you, in the fog.
Larry leaned on his shovel, frowning.
Like what?
John replied.
Light, not like the blaze, just sparks, Faint, but there.
They exchanged uneasy looks. Nick muttered.
Sparks? Huh. What do you make of it?
John shoved a chunk of rock aside, voice level, but firm.
I don't know what it means. Maybe nothing. But I have to ask. Have any of you ever had contact with magic besides me? Objects, people? Did your parents ever tell you stories? Anything that felt different?
Ray laughed at the question.
My boot that never stays on. Ever since Africa, man. Maybe that's where we picked it up.
Papa tinkered with every contraption he laid hands on. Swore he had the knack from his old man. Folks said the Adamses had an eye for what made things tick. Not much of a fairy tale,
Larry said with a chuckle.
Africa. Has to be Africa. You all know what happened.
The silence stretched too long. Ray's grin faded, leaning on his shovel for support, as if the memory pulled him down. Larry couldn't look at Nick. Finally, Ray said, low,
Yeah, you sang.
Nobody spoke after that. The only sound was shovels scraping earth and Nick's ragged breath. John finally said, quiet,
I wish I knew why it went the way it did, but it's too dangerous, whatever it is.
Nick's blue eyes burned as he struck another match.
And that's why I won't.
John remembered too. He had been completely hypnotized by the song, like an angel singing, the most beautiful male voice he'd ever heard. John studied them a moment, then returned to his digging.
Fortunately for you three, that Nazi didn't seem overly interested, but it concerned you, so I thought I'd mention it.
They worked in silence for a while, dust hanging in the air. By evening, the road was passable again, and the men settled in their bivouac beneath a shattered olive grove. Maleficent wakes. Shattenhall Castle sat like a thorny crown above the valley, half forgotten by history, but repurposed by ambition. Its once grand halls had been refitted with modern wiring. However, blackouts were frequent, and so they relied on candles, torches, and lamps. In the distance, factory stacks spit coal smoke over treetops. Trains passed like iron centipedes through the wooded ravines below. Convoys of tanks were sometimes visible from the castle's high terraces, crawling the highways like beetles. The main keep housed laboratories, relic vaults, and writer's private study, a maze of spell notes, notebooks, and mirrored drafting tables, balconies overlooking the vistas and courtyard. The towers gave Ryder a view of the Reich's shape and future. To the rest of Germany, Shattenhall was still a ruin. To him, it was a sanctuary. The guest chamber was dressed to impress. Velvet banners hung heavy from stone walls, torches guttered in iron sconces, a roaring hearth flung gold across the carved beams. A feather bed had been dragged in from somewhere, heaped with brocade and down. A silver tray weighted with wine, fruit, and dark bread. Maleficent lay draped across the bed, pale and regal, her horns stark against the pillows. Beauty unparalleled. Her eyes flickered green as they opened, slow and unhurried, like a queen expecting the world to wait. 3 SS officers stood stiffly nearby, medals polished, boots gleaming. They looked at her as though into the sun, half blinded by awe. She regarded the men assembled before her with a languid, predatory interest. An SS Standartenführer stepped forward, medals bright on his chest. His voice was rich, rehearsed, as though giving a speech in a great hall.
Your Majesty, good morning and welcome to the 20th century. You have awakened in an age of triumph. The Reich is ascendant. We have bent the continent beneath our banner. From the Arctic Circle to the sands of Africa, old kingdoms crumble, old bloodlines falter. 1,000 years of destiny now lies in our hands.
Another officer joined in, eager, gesturing toward the banners on the walls.
We offer you not scraps but the kingdom, a partnership with a nation that does not beg but commands. With your power and our will, no force on earth will stand against us.
The third spread his hands, almost in supplication.
Think of it, lady. Thrones restored, borders erased. Your name spoken with I in every tongue. Kings once groveled at your feet. We will make the world subservient.
For a long moment she said nothing, eyes half-lidded. She let their grand words fill the chamber like smoke. They stood taller as they spoke, eager and confident. Then her lips curved, faint and amused.
So, you offer me a world already promised to yourselves.
The Standartenführer faltered.
We.
Her laugh was soft, cutting.
I cursed a kingdom for slighting me, and you bring me hollow promises. What shall you do with me when I am deemed no longer useful and competition?
The officers shifted, their proud words collapsing into silence. One muttered something half-formed, another lowered his eyes. The grandeur bled from them in an instant, leaving them pitiable, stripped of their own rhetoric. Maleficent's gaze drifted past them, to the corner where Ryder stood silent, notebook under his arm. Her smile deepened.
And yet, one among you does not prattle.
He had said nothing, made no gestures of obeisance. He was not dressed in finery, only a white shirt rolled at the sleeves, his manner quiet, observant. Maleficent's lips curved again, this time with interest. She rose from the bed, slow and elegant, ignoring the flustered officers. Her new black robes whispered against the floor as she crossed to him.
You.
Her eyes glowed faintly as they searched his.
You are the one who pulled me from the soil.
Ryder inclined his head to the barest degree.
I am called Dr. Ryder. I facilitated your emergence.
Though not willingly. It was my power you sought, and when you realized you couldn't have it, then you brought me forth. You know what I am, what I'm capable of, and yet you delivered me from my rest anyway. Why?
Necessity, Your Eminence.
He did not flinch. Her eyes glinted.
What do you want?
Your help,
he said simply. For the first time, she smiled without mockery.
How quaint. And yet, I believe you.
The officers shifted uneasily, confused by her sudden softness. But Ryder remained steady, pale eyes unblinking. Maleficent's hand lingered a moment near his shoulder. Not a touch, merely the threat of one.
You are clever, little man. Clever enough to know I am no one's servant.
And studied enough,
Ryder replied calmly,
to know you are woefully outside your element in this century.
The green fire in her eyes flared. For a long moment, they stood in silence, predator circling predator. Then she laughed, soft and scornful, and turned from Ryder to the others.
Enough,
she said.
Your words reek of desperation.
The SS officers stiffened, faces paling. One reached for his belt. With a flick of her hand, every torch in the chamber guttered. Darkness swept the walls, leaving only her silhouette lined in firelight from the hearth.
You mistake me for a conscript,
she hissed.
I do not march to banners. I will see this age myself.
Her gaze cut back to Ryder, a glimmer of amusement threading through her fury.
You. I may visit again, but no promises.
She turned to the tall windows. Frost clouded the panes, and beyond them, the November wind howled, heavy with sleet. With a single gesture, the locks shrieked and burst. The casement slammed wide, and a rush of cold air flung the banners flat against the walls. The officers cried out as rain and sleet swept into the chamber. Ryder did not move. Maleficent mounted the sill, robes whipping around her. For an instant, she stood framed against the storm, black horns silhouetted by lightning. With a cry like tearing iron, Maleficent hurled herself from the window, her body twisted, lengthened, warped in shadow. Wings exploded outward, vast and black, her horns curving to spines, her cloak to scales. Where a queen had been, now a dragon surged into the storm. Many miles later, over the vistas of France, forests once deep and endless were razed, farmland and factories in their place, the soil carved into trenches and churned by iron treads. Rivers ran brown and sluggish, choked with waste. Her old fortress, once a proud keep where banners snapped in the wind, stood gutted, an ancient ruin, barely any foundation left. Only the contour of the mountains remained, the bones of the earth enduring where kingdoms had come and gone. She bared her teeth in disgust. Mortals had scoured her dominion bare. She swept lower, wings casting vast silhouettes against the sky. For an instant, she imagined peasants fleeing as they once had, dropping to their knees at the sight of her silhouette against the moon. Maleficent roared, a sound to shake heaven, and swept low over the valley as she had once done, expecting awe, panic, submission. Instead, searchlights speared her from the dark. Alarms wailed, shrill and metallic. The ground erupted with fire as turrets groaned skyward. Tracer rounds slashed the air in golden streams. Shells boomed, their shockwaves hammering the air. Shockwaves shredding her scales. She shrieked in pain as a round ripped into her flank, blood issuing from the wound. She wheeled upward, jaws spilling emerald fire across the tanks below, scouring them to molten ruin. But for every gun that burned, 3 more thundered in response. Then the sky screamed. Fighters swooped in formation, iron hawks faster than thought. Guns stitched her hide with burning lines, scales shattering under the relentless storm. A shell detonated against her wing, hurling her sideways, tearing the membrane ragged. She fought, tail lashing, fire spewing, but the machines swarmed, endless, merciless. Mortals, peasants once fit only for pitchforks, now tore at her with the fire of gods. Snarling in disbelief, she clawed for the clouds, green fire guttering at her jaws. She fled, broken and smoking, into the storm. The French doors blew inward, sleet hissing on the stone. Maleficent crashed through, scales collapsing back into robes, horns silhouetted against the lightning. She stumbled. Maleficent, who once strode invincible, her staff dimmed, robes tattered. The SS officers had long since left. Ryder waited by the fire. She stood shaking, fury and disbelief etched in her face. For a heartbeat, she could only breathe, ragged, green light guttering in her eyes. Then her voice broke, low and guttural.
They hunted me with iron wings. They hunted me like a beast. Their thunder tore my scales as though I were cloth.
She staggered to the hearth, robes dripping sleet, and leaned hard on the mantel.
Forests gone, rivers poisoned, castles shattered, my domain erased. Only the mountains remain.
Ryder closed his notebook softly, his pale eyes steady.
Yes, that is the 20th century.
She looked at him, stricken, unmoored, the predator with no prey. He inclined his head a fraction.
You have sanctuary here, madam, for as long as you desire.
For the first time, Maleficent said nothing. She only sank into the chair by the fire, eyes hollow with disbelief, as though the world itself had betrayed her. Exposed. The Allied camp in Italy lay quiet under a thin veil of mist, lanterns glowing faint between the rows of tents. Somewhere down the hill, artillery muttered like distant thunder. Ray snored quietly, a comic book spread open on his chest. John laid with his squad until their breathing steadied, then slipped free of his bedroll. Wide awake, bored, restless. Instead, he walked the lines, checked tools, even tried scratching another false start to his letter home. That's when they came. Muted steps from the shadows. A knot of men. They came all at once. Hands clamped onto his arms and shoulders from behind. One yanked at his belt, another seized his collar and dragged backward. John reacted instantly. His elbows drove back hard. One man grunted and fell away. John twisted, ripping one arm free and flinging another soldier off balance. The man hit the dirt hard enough to knock the wind from him.
Stand down!
John barked.
That's an order!
They didn't. More weight crashed into him. Someone swept his legs from behind. His boots slid in the churned mud. He didn't fall cleanly, but he dropped to one knee, and 3 men piled onto his back at once. He surged upward. For a moment, he lifted all of them, bodies hanging from him like sandbags. A fist struck the side of his head. Another jammed fingers beneath the edge of his goggles. Blindness swallowed him as the tinted lenses shifted out of alignment.
Hold him down!
Someone shouted. The scuffle drew eyes. Tent flaps snapped open. A corporal on patrol shouted,
Break it up! You lot, knock it off!
But the mob had taken things too far.
No time, rip it off!
One scrambled for John's head.
See what he's hiding!
They changed tactics. Instead of wrestling him upright, they attacked his joints. 2 men clamped onto one arm and forced it backward at the shoulder. Another wrapped both arms around his throat from behind. One dove for his legs and locked them together at the knees. John roared and heaved. One man flew free. Another slammed into a tent post. But the mud betrayed him. His footing slipped again. Weight multiplied. Boots dug into his calves. A body dropped across his lower back. The leverage was wrong now. Even strength has angles it cannot answer. Nick, Ray, Larry, and the rest of the squad barreled through the crowd.
Get off them!
Ray bellowed. Chaos rippled through the camp, lanterns flaring, men shouting, patrol whistles cutting the dark. John tore one arm free and swung. 2 men were thrown clear, but in that single second, hands reached his head. Fingers grasped the mask and headsock in a fist. Someone braced a knee against his shoulder. A sharp, ugly snap cut through the noise. The strap broke. The mask, hood, and all ripped free. The lamplight struck John in the face. He couldn't hide his shame. The struggle faltered. The rowdies wrapped around his arms, pulled his head back by the hair so he couldn't hide.
Look! Look at him!
A ripple of silence swept outward until the whole camp had gone still. Someone whispered,
Holy Mary.
Another croaked,
He's not even human!
John stood exposed in the center, expression wounded and panicked despite himself, the mask lying in the dirt. Larry, Nick, and Ray pushed through and raised guns on the rowdies that finally released John, who collapsed to his knees. Officers shoved through, barking for order, but their voices faltered as they, too, saw. Dozens of men stared, some in fear, some in awe, all in disbelief. Ellison arrived. He guessed by the expressions he passed what had happened. He arrived in the center of the crowd. He saw John, violated, ashamed, hands slipping over his face. Ellison looked around as if to pinpoint the culprits, but everyone was looking to him for help. Their reality just upended.
Enough! Are you satisfied? Is your paranoia slaked now?
His voice cracked like a whip across the crowd.
This ends now.
The other commanders came forward.
Major, what is this? Why weren't we told?
Because it was above your security access. High Command deemed his condition classified. You were told as much.
What is he?
Other men chimed in, all decorum forgotten.
He's a soldier. He's a captain. He's a man. But he's also...
Ellison struggled, grasping for the right word, trying to find anything but the word puppet.
He's been enhanced. The SS, the experiment. He's a super soldier.
Ray blurted suddenly. John's head came up at this. Ellison's eyes darted.
Yes, exactly. A top-secret super soldier. Was top secret thanks to these idiots.
Nick jumped in. The murmur swelled as officers and enlisted alike murmured and edged closer to get a better look. Fingers snuck in and prodded John's arms. A hand even brushed his brow, testing if the paint would smudge. His painted brows pinched, shame tensing his chin.
An interesting facial design choice. How are you still alive?
That's enough.
Ellison barked again, voice cracking over them. He shoved one of the gawkers back with his shoulder.
He's a captain, not a carnival attraction.
The crowd hesitated. No one quite dared look Ellison in the eye. Ellison's gaze swept the ring of faces.
You men who laid hands on a superior officer, stand fast.
The rowdies froze. One tried to slip backward, but a sergeant caught him by the collar and shoved him forward. More men pointed out the offenders.
You will be held under arrest for insubordination and assault,
Ellison said, tone iron.
Strip them of their rifles, confine them under guard until command decides their court-martial.
MPs pushed through, hauling the culprits aside.
But we thought he was a spy.
There were mutters, but no one resisted. Ellison turned back to the assembly, his face grim.
The rest of you, get back to your tents. You've seen enough. You'll speak none of this outside of this camp. That's an order, and I will know if it's disobeyed.
His voice lowered, colder still.
Loose talk is treason.
The crowd dissolved reluctantly, whispers trailing away into the night. Larry took John by the arm. He rose unsteady, his mask forgotten in the mud, painted eyes staring down, ashamed. Ellison softened then. He stooped, retrieved the mask, and pressed it into John's gloved hand.
Come on, Captain. Enough for tonight.
John managed a stiff nod. He didn't try to put the mask on. He felt paralyzed, like a deer in the headlights. As they turned toward the tents, Ellison's voice dropped, so only John could hear.
We'll get through this together. Hang tight, soldier.
John didn't know what to do. What was he going to do? The morning gave way to a clear day. The bombing still persistent in the distance. The squad geared up in silence between their cots. Ray was wrapping his foot, injured from his constantly fleeing boot. He looked across at John, laying on his side, fully dressed, his chest slowly rising and falling. He had gone to bed with the rest of them, but when the NCOs roused the tent, he didn't move. Passing servicemen tried to peek inside, but gave up when they couldn't get a vantage. The squad had let him be for now, but inevitably they would need him. Command wouldn't let him rest. Neither would the war. Ray timidly approached and sat beside him. John's eyes stared ahead, unmoving.
It's time, Captain.
Movement. The slightest flutter of his eyes, animated as if there were lids there. He slowly sat up, and Ray shifted to the next cot. John ran his hands over his hair, smoothing the mess back.
If I didn't feel like I'd stepped on a landmine, I would have thought it was a dream.
I'm sorry, Captain.
It was inevitable. This spy problem just brought it out sooner than expected.
What can we do to help?
Ray paused. Then a sly smile crept onto his face.
Want us to be bouncers? Deny them autographs? Chase off the swooning girls?
John's cheeks rose as he smirked. He looked at Ray appreciatively, a twinkle in his eye.
You're a swell kid. You know that, Private?
Ray's heart soared.
I try to be, sir.
Moping isn't going to put this off. Might as well lean into it.
He looked down at Ray's sad foot.
There's gotta be a cure for that.
You're one to talk.
Now John grinned, white, indistinct teeth showing.
We could get you a onesie with boots attached.
Then I'd be running around naked once I lost that, too.
Now they broke into laughter that competed with the thunder of artillery. They rose and finished gearing up and made up their beds for the day. A guide. The bedchamber at Shatton Hall lay dim. Fire low, shadows crowding the corners. Maleficent sat curled in the great chair before the hearth, her black robes spilling around her like pooled ink. Her staff leaned against the stone, its emerald dimmed to a dull ember. She hadn't spoken in days. She hadn't moved much either, save to rise restlessly and pace, then collapse again in silence. Ryder lingered, as always, at the edge of the room. He asked nothing. He pressed nothing. He only kept his notebook open, pen tapping idly, watching her with the calm patience of a man who knew storms would pass if left unprovoked. At last she stirred, lifting her head from the shadows of her hair. Her voice was quiet, ragged.
I am diminished.
The words hung heavy in the air. Even the hearth seemed to shrink from them. Ryder closed his notebook softly. He rose and approached, carrying a tray one of the orderlies had abandoned. Gauze, bandages, a bottle of antiseptic. He set it on the table beside her without flourish.
No,
he said, voice calm as ever.
You are displaced. That is not the same.
Her green eyes lifted, faint and dim, searching his face. Fury still simmered in them, but it flickered beneath something stranger. Doubt.
You would put your mortal hands on me?
He met her gaze, unflinching.
Not without leave, but I can show you how this century treats wounds, how it endures when even gods bleed.
For a long moment she held him in silence, her breath shallow, her pride warring with her need. Then, at last, she shifted her robes, showing seeping bullet wounds in her stomach. Not surrender, not trust, but the barest concession. Ryder dipped his head.
Very well. Let us begin.
After her wounds were tended to, Maleficent remained in the high-backed chair by the fire, her robes drawn close, fresh bandages wound pale across her shoulder, one arm and her stomach, a humiliation she bore with silent fury. She stared into the flames, her staff dim at her side. She spoke voice low, brittle.
The peasants have become kings. Their thunder tore my scales. The machines hunted me like a dog.
Ryder sat across from her, hands folded neatly before him. He did not contradict her. He let the words settle, then spoke with quiet steadiness.
You are not nothing. You were struck, yes, but even wounded, you escaped their grasp. Even in your fury, you left wreckage behind. You are still formidable. Only the field of battle has changed.
Her eyes flickered toward him, sharp and doubtful.
Formidable. Even dragons are nothing to them now. When a shell can tear my wing, when iron gnats swarm faster than thought. Tell me, doctor, what use is a storm in an age that cages lightning in wires?
Ryder leaned back slightly, unperturbed.
Storms kill men still. They always will. Storms persist. They shift course. They strike where defenses are weakest. The world has not ended you. It has only given you a fresh challenge.
For a moment, silence stretched between them. She looked away again, jaw clenched, the firelight painting green across her eyes.
You wanted my staff. I am vulnerable. It is within your grasp now.
She murmured, tempting him. Ryder's eyes drifted to where the staff leaned against her chair, the oculus gleaming faintly.
It had crossed my mind.
Hers rose to meet his gaze, measuring him. He held it unwavering.
I have no desire to take it from its true master. You can wield it more effectively than anyone alive.
After a long silence, he rose from his chair. Crossing the room, he stopped beside her, careful not to crowd. His tone lowered, almost gentle.
You are clever, Maleficent. Clever enough to know that brute force is not your only weapon. You were never just scales and flame. You were cunning, patience, fear made flesh. That is why you endured centuries above and below the earth, and why you endure still.
Her eyes lifted to him, wounded, searching. Ryder inclined his head, not in obeisance, but acknowledgement.
You only need to relearn the world as it is, to translate its strange new symbols. I am no leash, no chain, only a guide, and guides create safe places in unfamiliar ground.
For the first time since her return, her expression softened, wary, but touched with something like hope.
A guide,
she murmured, testing the word like a stone in her hand. He met her gaze, calm and unwavering.
Yes, and with such a guide, you will find new ways to remind the world who you are. You are not finished, Maleficent. You are only beginning again.
Super soldier. The bridgework had stalled again under fire. It was their third time trying to get this bridge up long enough to move the convoy over and try and push their fortifications farther north. Engineers crouched behind the half-laid trusses, rifles cracking back at muzzle flashes in the trees. Machine gun bursts chewed the ground, men hugging mud, helmets ringing with ricochets.
We're low,
Ray shouted, slamming a fresh clip into his rifle.
This is my last!
Larry's carbine barked twice, then clicked hollow.
Out!
He ducked back, fumbling for a pistol he knew wouldn't last long. The Germans pressed closer, shouting, grenades arcing, the sharp snap of bayonets on rifles. The line was collapsing, no reinforcements yet. The troops who were supporting them had been cut down. John crouched with them, breathing tight inside the mask. He still thought like a man of flesh and blood. He wasn't sure how much he could take, how much his wooden body could stand before splintering into kindling. He saw his boys, Ray's wide eyes, Larry fumbling with his pistol, Nick's jaw clenched hard against the palpable fear. He made his choice.
Stay down,
he barked. He rose from cover, shoulders broad, and charged into the hail of fire. Bullets raked his torso, splinters flying from his chest and arms, chips of glass shattering out of his goggles. His momentum carried him through the recoil of bullet impact. The German line faltered in shock. Their bullets weren't stopping him. John plunged into them. His rifle swung like a club, snapping stock and bone alike. A bayonet stabbed his side, sticking fast in wood. He wrenched it free and hurled the soldier into his comrades. Empty. He dropped the rifle and used his fists. One blow to the chest sent a man flying backwards, collapsing a knot of soldiers like 9 pins. Another fist into a jaw, teeth spraying into the mud. He grabbed a helmet and cracked it against another, steel bending under the impact. A grenade landed at his boots. Without hesitation, he scooped it up, hurled it back. The throw went double what he had intended, the blast shaking the air. To those further back in the smoke, it looked like madness. Men launched into the air, a shape moving through them like a storm in anthropomorphic form. They began to shout in fear.
Teufel! Ein Teufel! Devil! A devil!
The line buckled, panic spread. And just then, Allied reinforcements crested the embankment. Machine guns thundered, rifles volleyed. The Germans broke under the weight of both assault and terror. John stood amid it all, splinters jutting from his arms, chest gouged by bullets, mask streaked with dirt and blood. His fists were clenched, breath rapid, arms trembling. Around him the ground was littered with spent rifles, broken bayonets, groaning wounded. Then the Allies surged down the embankment, driving the last Germans into retreat. A tank rolled onto the roadbed, crewmen whooping from its hatch. Someone shouted,
Zimmerman held the line!
It spread like fire. Engineers and infantry alike broke into ragged cheers.
Zimmerman! Zimmerman! Zimmerman!
Helmets lifted, rifles waved in the air. John turned, splintered and ragged, staring at the sound. Their voices carried over the ruined bridge, over the groans of the retreating enemy. They weren't whispering freak, they were shouting his name. Ray clapped Larry on the shoulder, grinning through mud and blood.
He really is a super soldier.
Larry just nodded, wide-eyed. Even Blake, shaking his head, managed a crooked smile.
G.I. Joe's got nothing on him.
John raised a hand in acknowledgement, forcing himself to stand tall, to meet their eyes. The men roared louder.
Zimmerman! 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 Zimmerman!
Back at camp, sitting inside the tent, Larry was hard at work with needle-nose pliers. A bullet dislodged from John's back and was added to a helmet with a clank as it joined the collection. John's torso seeped with clear amber fluid. Large chips of wood were missing. He looked like he had been through a wood chipper. The original crater from Nick had made fair progress healing, closing up like bark over a trimmed branch stump. But now he was filled with uncounted holes.
How much does that hurt?
Nick asked, his nose crinkled in morbid fascination.
It hurts, but different.
John winced as another bullet came free. His eyes watered, his breath hitched. The full squad was gathered around, a captive audience. Ray entered with Major Ellison trailing behind and paused to rebuke the gathering.
Come on, guys, this isn't a medical theater.
They reluctantly returned to cleaning and repairing equipment, bandaging small flesh wounds. Ellison came and stood over John, wincing at the damage.
Don't get up. How are you? You okay?
John winced and gave a thumbs up.
Chipped but whole.
He confirmed.
I wish I could have seen you. The talk is all over camp. They say you were throwing Jerry's like dolls. No pun intended.
Clank. Another bullet for the helmet.
What do you need? You need wood filler?
No.
John grunted as Larry dug in deep.
Well, I don't know. I can't bandage these without the sap fusing the fabric to me. It'll harden into a cast, and I'll never get it off.
We need an arborist,
Nick muttered. Larry set the pliers down.
That's the last of them. Maybe fabric tape can seal the leaks instead of bandages. I'll dig around.
John nodded faintly, rising, his torso streaked like a wounded tree. Pale inner layers, raw, where the outer grain was blasted away. He dabbed at the sap with a rag, methodical, steady. His broad shape may have been simplified, but still cut an imposing figure. Ellison studied him a long moment.
The other captains are talking. So's the major. They've written up to the colonels. Word is spreading. They're calling you a super soldier too, John.
John rummaged for his sewing kit, draped his bullet-ravaged shirt over his lap, and tried to thread a needle.
If that's what command decides, then that's when I am. A soldier doesn't argue with orders.
His tone was level, but quiet, and the needle slipped again in his glossy fingers. Major Ellison whipped the shirt off John's lap and held it up. It was shredded to rags.
You're not fixing this, John.
John quirked his lips and put the needle away.
I'll get you another.
Then Ellison cocked an eyebrow.
How'd it feel, teaching Jerry to fly?
John pursed his lips, then smirked.
Felt dang good, sir.
Before Ellison could reply, wings fluttered. Soldiers ducked as a pigeon darted straight into the tent, circled, and landed on the opposite cot. Ellison blinked.
You've got to be kidding me.
John gestured as he wadded up his ruined shirt.
Ah, Major. Seems we've got another communique.
The men chuckled as the bird strutted forward, a stick clamped in its claws. It twitched its head toward John, then laid the stick down with deliberate care.
Huh.
John muttered, picking it up.
This is new.
Nick leaned closer.
Is there a message carved on it?
John turned it over.
No, just a stick.
It was smooth, rounded, tapered, maybe 10 inches. He held it up toward the bird.
What am I supposed to do with this?
The pigeon puffed its chest and crooned.
Kokodits, kokodits.
The tent went quiet.
Holy smokes,
Ellison breathed.
That really does sound German.
John rubbed his forehead.
This is what I've been dealing with. Birds sending riddles.
He offered his wooden hand, and the pigeon hopped on. The others laughed and whispered as John carried it toward the entrance, bare-chested. He tried to toss it into the air, but it flapped back down, pecking at his face.
Stop! Stop! I don't know what this means!
He yelped, flailing until the obstinate bird flew to the opposite tent pole. Exasperated, John pointed the stick like a scolding finger and opened his mouth to rebuke, then froze. His expression shifted, realization dawning. Ellison stepped beside him.
Captain?
John's painted eyes turned, sharp.
It's her.
Her?
The witch. The prisoner they stole the wand from. She's at Colditz. She sent the bird.
Ellison frowned.
And you got all that from a stick?
John shrugged, sheepish.
It's wand-shaped?
Larry folded his arms.
You mean the prisoner that knows the phrase that could let the Nazis use the magic wand?
Yes,
John said firmly.
I told Command already. Our best chance of stopping the wand is rescuing her first.
Ellison rubbed his jaw.
I can pass it up the chain, but it's risky. If the message is intercepted, she gets moved, and then we're blind again. What if the pigeon can't pronounce the next place?
John held the stick like a baton, eyes steady.
Then we don't waste time. We deliver the message ourselves. What else are we supposed to do?
Later that evening, as their truck rumbled back toward Naples, John got to his letter, bending low over the paper. The first draft still haunted him. Words slashed through, the page scarred where the pencil dug too deep. He wanted to tell Margaret everything, but everything would be stripped by censors, or worse, intercepted. High Command had stamped his condition top secret. The SS still thought him dead. And Margaret, she had never believed him. Not even as a lovesick young man when he tried to be forthright about his true inception. He tapped the pencil, staring at the empty page. How to say anything at all? How to tell her the truth when the truth was forbidden, unbelievable, and dangerous? At last, he began again, the words simple, ordinary, yet carrying the faintest shadow of what weighed on him.
My dearest Margaret, I hope this finds you well. The days are long here, the kind that wear into a man's bones. But we keep moving forward, 1 mile of road at a time. I think often of home, of you and the children. Do you remember years ago how you teased me about my strange skin condition? You laughed and said I must have dreamed it. Well, it seems the old trouble has found its way back and carved itself into my life again. It has proven both blessing and curse. I am doing what I can to set it right before they send me home. The men keep me busy. 4 have made themselves to be the best friends a man can have. Good men, though they test my patience sometimes. You would like them. Fiercely loyal, doggedly brave, and have good hearts. When I'm down, they are right there to put me back on my feet. Take care of yourself and the children. Tell them their father is strong, though he sometimes feels splintered, and that he loves them more than all the miles of road in Italy. Yours always, John.
He straightened. That would have to do.